Representative Mills is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I can tell you I won't be reclaiming any time, Secretary. I will make sure that you have the opportunity to answer questions. I think that you've done an amazing job. I think that well before you actually became Secretary, when you were sitting in the Senate, you proved yourself as a leader in foreign affairs. I can remember you and I, when we were campaigning in 22 together, we were at an event with Ron DeSantis in my district, and we sat and talked about foreign policy, and you're one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met with, so thank you for stepping up to the challenge. I also want to go ahead and rebut a couple of things, because I believe, as you do, that history, an understanding of history, and the understanding of our 7 articles, 27 amendments in our Constitution is what makes you a good legislator and a good member of the federal government. They keep talking about this $400 million plane gift to Qatar, and you tried to answer this multiple times, but I want to paint some history here. In 1945, U.S. President FDR gifted a Douglas DC-3 to King Abdulaziz, which marked the beginning of a civil aviation in Saudi Arabia. This airplane is nothing more than a reason to complain about the president that knows how to advance U.S. interests. And it's actually more about trying to conflate optics with actual outcomes. This is a long-standing history, and so I just want to go ahead and let people know what that actually is. Now, as you know, I was one of the first members of Congress to go to Syria after the fall of the Assad regime, met with the incoming and transitional government, with al-Shara, with al-Shabani, and with his transitional government. I absolutely support the idea of lifting the sanctions on a conditions metrics base, which is allowing them to not only rebuild Syria, because for those of us who understand history, the road to Damascus travels through Baghdad. We know there's twin and sister cities, and we know that the stability of Syria ultimately impacts the outcome and the stability of the region. I think that what al-Shara has done to show inclusivity and plurality is commendable in the beginning. I mean, he has one of his ministers who is a female Alawite who I spoke with who said, I have full authorization, not just window dressing. He has actually talked about the plurality and inclusiveness of the government and its elections to guarantee that the Druze, the Alawites, the Christians, the Muslims, and all who are there will actually be a part of the incoming government and elections. He's also working with Israel to speak right now, where he's blocking weapons transports through Syria into Lebanon from Hashd al-Shaabi, the Iranian-backed militia, to try and make attacks against Iran. He's working with Iraq and the United States and the CTS teams to help combat ISIS, Daesh, to guarantee that they're still weakened, but also guaranteeing that he's pushed Iran out to make sure it's not a proxy state. It's a historical moment for Syria. 50-plus years, the Russians have had a stronghold under the Assad regime. And I commend you on your support for this and also the Caesar Act when it passed. Secretary Rubio, I have a question with regards to Iran. We understand that the nuclear negotiations are going on and there's much to be done. But could you give us some of the highlights to what these metrics and conditions will be in the administration to guarantee that not only do we see a Iran that is free of nuclear weapons, but a potential change and fall of the Iranian regime?
Well, anytime these negotiations are ongoing, you want to be delicate about what you say publicly because it could upend them. And obviously, I remind everybody that no matter the nature of their government, in foreign relations, the people on the other side are in politics too. So they have their own balances that they need to have in terms of what they say publicly. What I think has been abundantly clear and the president said is, number one, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And he's discussed that there's one way to do it, which is not an ideal way, and the other way to do it is for Iran to agree to a deal. What is a deal that does not allow Iran to get to a nuclear weapon? It is a deal that doesn't just say we commit not to getting to a nuclear weapon and taking them at their word, but ensure that they do not have the capacity, the continued capacity to enrich. If they can enrich, then you are basically a threshold nuclear power that at any time can accelerate that process and get to that point. So that is the goal of these negotiations, to create an incentive model where if they give up their enrichment capability, they will receive some sanctions relief commensurate with it. That's the hope. That's what we're working on, because the alternative would be something far more destructive, and we seek to avoid that if possible.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And obviously to stop the funding of the proxy militias like Houthis, like Hamas, like others, which I know that you've been adamant about. I want to switch to Brazil, if I may. Mr. Secretary, as you're certainly aware, the alarming human rights decline in Brazil. We've seen pervasive censorship, political persecution targeting the entire opposition, including journalists and ordinary citizens. What they're now doing is an imminent politically motivated imprisonment of former President Bolsonaro. This crackdown is extended beyond Brazil's borders, impacting individuals on U.S. soil. The 2023 Financial Times article actually talked about this. What do you intend to do, and would you be looking at Supreme Court justice sanctioning of Alexandra de Moraes under the Global Magnitsky Act?
That is under review right now, and it's a great possibility that will happen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. With that, I yield back.
Representative